All right, it is officially time for us to start. Welcome to the third speaker in our series dealing with artificial intelligence. This week, we are graced by the presence of Troy Seppelt. Dr. Seppelt is the Dean of Students and the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. He received his Ed.D. from Azusa Pacific University, and prior to that had a master's degree from Western Michigan University in counseling and student affairs, and his undergraduate from University of Minnesota Morris way back in the day in psychology.
Wow, way to make it sound old.
I know, way back in the day. Mine I'm sure is much older than yours. Dr. Seppelt is going to talk to us today about academic misconduct, dealing with suspected academic misconduct, and some of the challenges that are presented to us in the world of AI. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone in person. Should I wave for the camera first?
You can wave for the camera too.
And online, all of you humans out there, welcome. Thanks for spending a little time this afternoon. To add on to the introduction, thanks very much. And you didn't even look at your notes very often. Troy, he, him, and his is an easier way to say hello. And who I am, Assistant Vice Chancellor, Dean of Students, Human, for our beautiful university. So this fine afternoon, we're going to be talking about the academic misconduct process with a teeny tiny sprinkling of AI. And I think we all collectively know there's not a lot of great tools out there for identifying if a student has used AI in creating product for classrooms. So we're going to lean much more heavily into the process of how do we address what we think is academic misconduct, our shared partnership and work in that, academic affairs and student affairs, and literally walk through the process a little bit. And then hopefully end with some good conversation and questions to make sure that everyone here in the room and everyone online gets what they need from this afternoon's brief conversation, okay? For anyone there and here, if there are questions along the way, just wave at me awkwardly, emphasis on the awkward waving. I would rather engage as we walk through this together to answer any questions that you might have, okay? Always important that we start with our language and mission statement. So we would like to recognize that the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point occupies the lands of the Ho-Chunk and Menominee people. And we take a moment to acknowledge and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk and Menominee land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous people. Thank you for that. Troy's moderate agenda this fine afternoon are these lovely 6 little items. A brief conversation about chapter 14 itself, which provides the structure and guidance related to academic misconduct, talking about our responsibilities, working ourselves through the process a little bit, the rare occurrence of if there is a hearing as part of the process for academic misconduct, what that involves, some of the data, because in prepping for this, some of the questions were how often do things show up and how do our faculty reply or respond to finding a responsibility for academic misconduct, and then of course conversation and questions at the end. Okay, all right. Number 1 on the lovely list. So this is the beginning and preamble of the lovely chapter 14. In addition to sharing information, hello and welcome, dear friend. Also along the way, hopefully iron out a few misnomers out there. This is not the Dean of Students. This is UW Systems Chapter 14. It is the policy and process for all campuses of the University of Wisconsin, or I guess universities of Wisconsin, if I'm trying to be moderately current. And it really outlines again what might be considered academic misconduct, what are the requirements of a process and who's responsible for those pieces, how must a hearing look if something moves into a hearing, what does the appeal process look like, and all that. It's 8 lovely pages. And today and online, which you'll see later, what we have tried to do in our office is distill that for all of our instructional colleagues. Hopefully make it less onerous, less work overall. There's still work, but hopefully to make it easier for all of you as you engage our students in these conversations, okay? I mentioned that this is the kind of uniquely a shared responsibility at the university. For normal student conduct, behavioral misconduct, that completely resides in our office. For allegations of interpersonal violence, right, that's our Title IX coordinator, and a lot of that resides in our office. But we're talking about academic misconduct. It's shared work in responding to what a student may have or may not have done as it relates to their academics. So everything starts with the chancellor, and the chancellor delegates from there. So for academic misconduct on the academic affairs side, our dear provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs is the delegated authority for our campus as it relates to chapter 14. Then, of course, there are a fair number of responsibilities that then fall to all of you as our instructional faculty colleagues in the classroom trying to engage students in their learning, okay? That said, there actually are responsibilities outlined in 14 that are ours, and by ours I mean student affairs work. On our campus, I am the designated human from the chancellor to my boss, Al Thompson, to me, as it relates to conduct and partnering with our faculty colleagues. And then I further gently delegate to my assistant dean of students, Brittany College. She's responsible in my office for all things student conduct related. And we'll reference her periodically throughout today or throughout this afternoon, okay? So we partner with our faculty in working through this process. We are, because we're student affairs colleagues, like we are the subject matter experts about doing student conduct. You didn't mention when I graduated from Morris and the other schools, the job. Officially, this is probably my 23rd or 24th year doing student conduct. And that's just me. My associate dean of students, Rebecca Rogi, Brittany as our assistant, we've all done conduct since our master's, since time getting our master's degree. So we have lots of experience engaging students and process and appeals from minor things all the way up to kinds of things where we have expelled students from our respective institutions at the time. So we have lots of experience to try to work with our colleagues to figure out the academic misconduct question. And by we, I really mean Brittany, is your consultant. So if you have questions or concerns or if the process feels confusing, she is the first human in our office that we would encourage you to call or email. She's out on vacation this week, so good for her. But beyond that, she is available and she is happy to work through it with you in terms of the process itself and talking about the case, understanding that really the first authority of outcome, which you'll see, rests with you as the academic experts in the classroom, right? If there are hearings, we manage those things. And then we are the keepers for UW Stevens Point, all records related to academic misconduct. And you'll see where that fits in as we move on, okay? Good so far? All right, yes.
So the title, the UW system policy, that has not changed at all, right? I mean, since AI came on, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Same document.
There are technically two documents, right? If you go online and you search UWS chapter 14, you'll find the system proper one. Every campus gets to add some tweaks and some gentle emphasis in particular spaces, as long as we don't change the original content and processes. So if you go online, and I'll show you exactly where it is on the Student's website, and you open our UWSP chapter 14, you'll see bold and italicized sections that speak to our campus. Like, again, it mentions Lavon, not by name, but by position, as our delegated authority. It mentions me and our office as the investigative office, if something goes that direction. And we tried to, again, make it easier by adding content without changing process to our version of chapter 14. But it has not changed since the advent and more recent adoption of AI things. There is a working group out there of UW system conduct officers who have started looking at reviewing and update chapter 14 for the system. That is a 2-year process once it actually gets going, because it has to go through the legislature for that as well. So not only campus stuff and system stuff, but then the legislature has to approve the changes. Yeah, that's a ways out. Okay. So we're already on number 3, actually, believe it or not, as we start thinking about the process. This is a super duper shorthand version of the process. We're going to dip into each of these. One, of course, is you notice something is amiss. This doesn't feel right. Their writing is miraculously better, and you're trying to understand why. Or 3 exams look exactly the same. I want to understand why. So you notice something as the instructor or record writer, as the lab manager, even you notice something unique. Then it's, hey, students, let's talk about this. I noticed something. I'd like to have a conversation. You meet with the student and you engage in a meaningful interaction about what you've noticed and their side of the story, what they say they did or they didn't do. After the conversation, you make a decision, and then you tell the people. Sounds relatively easy, and actually, it's relatively easy and straightforward. There are, of course, time involved in the process. So that's where many of our faculty colleagues are like, can be a bit onerous, particularly if you have a lot of students involved in a singular event of alleged misconduct, right? That's lots of conversations and things that happen.
Can I start?
Please.
So I just noticed in like step 0.5.
Point 5.
It had also like, and submit a report. What report is that?
Perfect.
We didn't discuss that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we'll totally get there. Great prompt. Thank you. I did not pay the audience. Okay, so again, you as the expert of your class, the expert of your content, the person who has seen the growth of your student from day 1 until today, whatever today is, who can assess and evaluate whether or not this feels different or odd, or you notice copying or etc. You notice something is not right, and you're like, feels like academic misconduct, and I need to engage in the process. Okay, there is a report, and the next slide I'll show you exactly where it is, where we are asking, as the record keepers of the university, that you tell us at the outset, at the beginning. Hello, here's the student's name, here's what I've noticed, here's the evidence I have at the moment. Like here are scans of the 3 exams that are literally exactly the same to the comma for these 3 students, and submit it online to us as an online reporting form. Documents are easy to upload it to. You can do it from your cell phone. Doesn't matter. All the stuff works to do that, okay? The reason we ask that you let us know up front is, as the keepers of the record, if this is the 3rd time, you might want to know that as you're addressing the current situation. And then you would collaborate with Brittany or I to go, okay, if they're responsible here, because this is the 3rd time and they were found responsible 2 previous times, we should think differently about the potential outcome. Then our office will work with you to go, what does that mean? How do we look at this situation specifically? And then what is the collective outcome for their choices as a human in doing that work? So there's an online report that allows us up front to take a quick look. Most of the time, not a lot of repeats, not a lot of repeat humans in our process, right? Once they're addressed, just like in the residence halls, when we're talking residence hall, other student behavior, after the initial conversation, students generally get it. Our students generally get it, right? There are a couple, but our students generally get it, okay? There's a 0.5 for a reason. One is, of course, there is a process of you noticing that something doesn't feel right or doesn't look right. And there should be for you a process to go, why do I think that? Where are my notes in that? Because I'm going to have a conversation with a student. And so how do I, before I get anything else started, how do I take my notes? How do I prepare myself? Also, we have heard from some of our friends, both here at this institution and in my previous institutions. Some of our faculty colleagues are mad that the student made that choice for them, right? It feels personal. And so for you as a human to take a deep breath and understand why a student might have made that choice for them in the moment for your class is important before you're sitting in the room with them, trying to really understand and engage the student in what they did or did not do at the end of the day. So take a moment, work through all of your feels, because right, you created that. It is personal. It is part of who you are in creating your course content. If the student is struggling, if they're behind, if they have life crisis, they told no one. I mean, there are at least 50 reasons why a student might have made the decision. They're not trying to stick it to the system. There's usually a different reason as to why they made the choice. And some, very few, again, make the choice just because it's easier to cheat or just to copy or just to whatever. And maybe that's a singular assignment or that's more collectively their view of higher education. Okay, we'll work through the process for that student and go there. But again, it's important for all of you to manage what comes up for you as an expert in your field, delivering your content. So then when you're meeting with students, you're like, all right, I'm settled now. We can talk about what's going on, okay? Because this process, like your classroom process, like our other student conduct process, it's educational in nature. That's the goal. All right. So as you're looking, this is the list from 14 about what could be considered academic misconduct. Okay, and there are examples on page 2, by the way. So they are claiming credit for something they didn't do. Artificial intelligence, potentially. They're unauthorized materials, or they're using fabricated information or data, definitely, potentially an AI implication for that student, right? Forging and falsifying other records, intentionally getting in the way of another student and their academics, that's academic misconduct. Like destroying artwork has been seen, like on some of our campuses, right? Going in because of whatever relationship they're having, they did something inappropriate that's academic and behavioral misconduct. Faulty representing what they have done. So think transcript manipulation as before they send it out to their friends and colleagues. And of course, assisting others to do any of those things. Again, this list is in 14, and that list is actually in chapter 14, some more concrete examples. Turning in assignments, literally copying exams, collaborating with another student on a project or an assignment when that was not outlined as allowable in your respective class. We see that a few times, right? We just work together. That's great, but I told you, no, you can't do that actually for this assignment or that assignment. Stealing exams, course materials, tampering of lab equipment to throw off other students and their assignments, those kinds of things would all be considered academic misconduct. Okay, so you have noticed something is amiss. You have looked at the list of potential, or we're going to go back page. This might fall under A, B, and sometimes it's more than one, A and B, in terms of academic misconduct. I go online and submit a report, and I'll skip to that now. And then you invite the student in for a conversation. Okay. By the way, we have templates for these things for you already made and online for you just to access. Our goal is to make it easier for all of you when you this work with our students. Okay, where to find the lovely reporting form? Sorry, I'm not off 7 slides ago. This is the front page of the lovely Dean of Students website, and you'll see a ginormous tile that says reporting. And once you click on that, you will see another page of ginormous tiles of all the different kinds of reports. Academic misconduct is one, specifically says it's reserved for instructional staff to submit information about alleged or possible academic misconduct. Okay, so once you have your notes together and your initial information together, that's what you would submit using this reporting form. And then we'll take a look. And if there's a repeat offender or a repeat potential offender, we would reach out to you as the faculty to let you know. So then you would manage your situation and we would partner together for if the sanction needs to be overall different after the fact. Okay. All right. Already on step number 2. So you've submitted a report, you've invited the student to come and meet with you, and then you engage in a meaningful human conversation with someone who possibly made a choice that's out of bounds. If you need a sports ball metaphor, I'm not really a sports ball guy, but a sports ball metaphor is they're out of bounds, right? Hey, this is what I see. Can you help me understand why your exams are exactly the same? Or help me understand why, if this is your writing sample number 1, this is your writing sample number 2, they're dramatically and drastically different. Let me point out what I mean for you. Let me help you understand what I'm seeing as your faculty member. Okay. Help me understand what you did or didn't do for this assignment. Okay, because it kind of looks like you borrowed content. Can you talk to me about where you got the content? Right? Maybe it's a simple, I didn't know I needed to cite that information. Okay, we talked about that. Let's figure that out together. Okay. And again, your goal or the goal is sharing what you see and what you believe that happened, gathering information from the student, getting their perspective, inviting them to be honest in all of that, right? I'm here to figure it out with you, dear student. Let's do that together and let's figure out what happened, okay? Gather all of that information, thank them for coming. You are making your notes, let them know that you will let them know as soon as you can. But our gentle recommendation is that you do not make a decision while the student is in the room with you. Likely, by being honest and caring and genuine and concerned, you just actually built a bit of a relationship that maybe you did or didn't already have with that student. And rendering decision while they sit there will not help you in that. So we do the same thing for behavioral misconduct stuff. Engage them meaningfully because they do matter as our humans, right? They all matter. You need to do the work after the review your own notes, what they shared with you, and then ultimately make a decision about whether or not you think they're responsible or not for academic misconduct. Okay. So they leave and you ponder all of your notes, and either they did or they didn't violate Chapter 14 policy. It's pretty relatively straightforward. In theory, it does rely on your judgment as the experts of your content and your courses to go, yep, I think this really feels like these two students did exactly the same thing for the exactly same project. They didn't even alter a word or a comma. They collaborated together. It was not appropriate. They were advised not to do that. Okay, responsible. Okay, go back to that list and go, all right, responsible for A, B, or A, B, and C, whatever it is. And then go, all right, what feels appropriate in terms of an outcome or a sanction or an educational moment for that student. The cool part is you already started that educational process with your invitation to meet with them honestly, to sit with them in person and engage in the content, conversation about what they did or didn't do. And now you're going to finish, for the most part, a conversation about what's appropriate, what is not appropriate in being a student, being a young scholar here at our institution, okay? Or you're like, you know what, you're right. I don't, now this makes perfect sense to me. Your explanation makes sense to me. I relooked at all the things. And no, I don't think academic misconduct happened in this case. Awesome, I feel better. Either way, you tell them one or the other. So if responsible, here are the options for what a sanction could be. And you can do more than one. That's a question we sometimes receive. Most often, and you'll see in the data later, D on the lovely list is the most often used outcome for our faculty. On this particular assignment, clearly you used your cell phone to get the answers and look things up. I saw it, that's my evidence. I'm gonna either lower the grade or you get a failing grade for this particular assignment. Next, most favorite is do it again. There's learning that needs to happen in our classroom in regards to this content. I'm going to need you to redo that assignment or redraft this thing, understanding that, of course, that is it's a learning opportunity for them and a work item for you after the fact, right? We're transparent in that. But again, these two are the most often selected by faculty in regards to the particular assignment itself. Very rarely, relatively rarely, lowering the overall grade in the course, and we're talking about a singular assignment. Not a lot of people, that's a big swing in regards to a student's academic career. Failing the class in its entirety, unless it's something like, and we have worked with people who plagiarize their dissertation. Ooh, that's a big thing in your doctoral degree, and that is likely a big swing in terms of an answer for that size of choice that student made for whatever the reasons, right? It probably is a down here in terms of outcome for that particular student. We again removing the student from the class. It's basically the same as giving them an F, and they're right. So pretty rare this stuff happens down here. Okay. There have been again cases like that dissertation item We actually, in my career, had a student who broke into the registrar's office, inserted a keystroke tracking item on the computer so they could go back later and get into their record and change their academic record. Like that's exceptionally rare, my dear friends. But that's the thing where we're talking suspension or expulsion. You don't need to be a student here, or you don't need to be a student in our system anymore, because that was the level of choice that that student was making about their academics and our integrity as an institution. Right, that was a very large problem in working with that particular student. So again, you thought about it, you've made your decision of responsible or not. If responsible, you pick one or more of these items, and then you let people know. If they are not responsible, great. You still write them a letter and go, hey, thanks so much for engaging in that. It was super helpful for me. I can see what you did. That is not academic misconduct. Looking forward to see you again in class. Metaphorical air high five to you, young human. Thank you very much. Or the other, I believe you are responsible for academic misconduct. A on this list, here it is. Here's why I believe that. That's a paragraph of you describing both the conversation and the evidence and why you came to your relative decision. And then here's your sanction for that. You get an F on this assignment. Let's move forward. If you have questions or concerns, if you are struggling, I want to work with you so you are successful in this class. For this one, you get an F on this quiz or an F on this smaller assignment in class. Okay. And then you include us on that outcome. So you sent it to us at the beginning, right? Here's my initial thought and feeling, my initial evidence. Here's my outcome letter that says responsible or not, responsible sanctions. We merge all that stuff together into a case. So again, if there's another concern a week later or a different class for the next year, we can go, yes, Bob is on our list for having done the same kind of thing before. Let's talk before you engage that student in the conversation for your class. Cool. Relatively straightforward-ish, yeah. Okay, good. That's my hope, is relatively straightforward. We have a template for the outcome letter too, by the way, on our lovely and amazing website. Okay. I mentioned at the outset this lovely thing called a hearing. First, they are really rare. So take a deep breath, everyone, here and at home or in your office somewhere on the campus. They're really rare. A student does have a right under Chapter 14 in terms of due process to say, I disagree with you. You said I'm responsible for academic misconduct. I saying I am not. I do not agree with your outcome that you just sent me in the letter. See last slide. And I want a hearing. That's their right. It's not an appeal, because all of your conversation, which might sound a little weird, are really a bit of a recommendation as it's defined in Chapter 14. But if they don't ask for a hearing, then that means they accept the recommendation, it becomes final, and that's the sanction that gets applied. And you apply that to your respective grade book or next assignment or whatever that works for you in your class. Okay. But as students have a right to disagree. They have a right to disagree with the finding of responsibility and the sanctions or the sanction that was applied by you. Okay. Okay. You have that right. Let's help you do that, young student. That's where our office is more involved, in that we work with students and faculty and any witnesses. We create the hearing, and that can be a panel of humans, or it can be an individual hearing examiner. Again, my staff have been doing conduct for many years. I think collectively we're at 60 years of conduct experience in our little office. I am younger than I look. So like we can do it as a hearing examiner or as a hearing board. If it involves particular expertise, right? Because academic stuff and assignments and that, we would then look for hearing panel members who have expertise to understand what's going on in the class and the assignment and the concern from the faculty member and the response from the student. We coordinate all of those things for you, okay, in partnership with all of you. And we have the hearing, and faculty share their side of the information. Here's my evidence, here's my belief, here's why I made my initial decision. Student goes, I disagree, and here's why I disagree, and my evidence and my witnesses, and etc. The hearing is over. Everyone goes their way, and the hearing examiner or the hearing board would deliberate and then make an ultimate decision. It might be exactly the same as recommended by the faculty member. It might be something more, even that's relatively rare, because you generally try to follow the guidance of the faculty member for their class and their assignment and their process, right? Their expertise in their space. Or, which has happened, hearing examiner or hearing board is like, no, I don't actually think they're responsible. And then it's up to that board or that hearing examiner, again, which is an individual, to explain that in an outcome that goes out to both the student and the faculty member. And that has happened. It's relatively rare, but it has happened where the evidence provided didn't get over 50%. And you have to get over 50% in terms of responsibility for academic misconduct. A faculty colleague didn't like the answer, but also understood over time, right? That's kind of the way the system works. And then if something goes to a hearing and the student is then also additionally found responsible for academic misconduct, then the student has a right to appeal because the hearing board or panel or examiner made the final decision. And then the appeal authority is the provost. Because again, they have delegated authority from the chancellor for academic misconduct and chapter 14 process overall. Again, rare, 1 or 2 a year, I think is what my numbers are for the past few years, even pre-pandemic, 1 or 2 a year. And it's most often, they don't like the sanction, they don't, particularly if the sanction feels heavy, every sanction feels heavy for a student often. We just affirm their right to have a hearing and we just make it happen. Again, we do all the arranging, the record keeping, all of that, okay? All right, whew. That's process part A and part B. I'm gonna gently pause. Questions or concerns about the processes themselves itself? I guess it's one process. The process itself, things online or things in the room. Yes, my friend.
I mean, I sent in, things to your office and I have not included, I always send the letter notifying when I send the letter to the student, but I haven't included the evidence. So how important is that?
If we're talking the front end, like
Yeah.
the first notification to us, less important.
Okay.
More important if you find them responsible and then we get the second letter.
Okay.
Because that's what you're using to say you're responsible and your explanation paragraph in that letter. Be helpful to have it on file.
Okay.
They get, I remember correctly, 14 days from that receiving your letter to then request a hearing. Sending it in with your finding letter makes it easier for us to get the hearing scheduled more quickly. Right? We're not bouncing back and forth to go, where's the information, so we can get the hearing scheduled. Yeah, the initial notice and the flag waving for us is more important because then you can move forward with your process if we don't see another.
Oh, this is a point of curiosity. You mentioned hearings, the initial hearings, you have about 1 or 2 a year. Like how many? Like say a student was found responsible and then that goes to the faculty, the initial and then the hearing again and they appealed again. How often does that say?
Next to never.
No, okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
next to never. I mean, I have been involved in cases not academic misconduct that have gone to the board of regents for review. Because there's also a level after that, particularly for behavioral misconduct stuff, the other stuff we do in our office. Yeah. All righty. Anything online from our online humans? Questions?
Nothing from
You
the
still out
online
there,
humans.
everybody? I know you're multitasking. It's okay. Ask questions. Okay, so hopefully the process is relatively straightforward. And again, we got you if you need a consultant. In terms of what we also provide in terms of our, in addition to our general awesomeness, is if you go to our lovely website, and on the bottom here, you'll see a faculty and staff section. Click on academic misconduct. It'll take you to the misconduct page overall. And right at the top, academic misconduct policies and processes. No more than 2 clicks. That's our goal, right? No more than 2 clicks. And on the next page, you'll see this entire left column is designed and created for our instructional colleagues There's a guide which shows you that 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that I just showed you on the last slides. I'm sure there's at least one typo in there. That's just kind of the way. There are the templates there for the invite and the outcome letter. If you open this one, you can also link directly to those from that guiding document there. There's our version of chapter 14. There's a link to the reporting form. Ooh, oh, I need to turn this in. That's right. Let me tell Troy and friends, I have a concern about academic misconduct. Here's the link. I will do that. There's a semi-generic statement about academic integrity. It has existed since I started here. We updated it this year when we started thinking about this. You could probably ignore that one. And then the bottom one is actually a guide that I know we need to update, but it's still relevant. It's the guide we provide for students online. What does it mean? What is academic misconduct? What does the process look like for that? Okay. So certainly 1 through 4 over there are all designed specifically for instructional friends to get the information, to have a handy dandy, here's the process, to report what's going on for them. Okay. And again, we look at these every summer to update. I try to find that one last typo that we sure is in the document, and then reload it directly back to these links. So all you have to do is go to one place every time to get what you need for academic misconduct. All right, what's next? Oh, I thought I would show you at least the bits of the template. So this is the hi, we should meet to talk about stuff and things. Brittany created all this, by the way. She gets all the credit. She's the amazing human. And we tried to go, all right, let's make it super duper easy. Take care of the things that are highlighted, delete the red things, and pick only what you need, insert your name, attach it to an email, and hit send. Hopefully, relatively easy, would not take a lot of time. There is a place where you need to describe what you're seeing, what your concern is, okay? And then the same is true for the outcome letter. Hey, fill in the highlighted things, delete the red things that you don't need, describe your decision so it makes sense to the student why you're finding them responsible or not. There's always a not column here. We've had cases come up where we're like, oh yeah, this is actually good. Way to go. Student, high five. And then we get a no letter, right? It's a lot shorter than this one. So these are online examples of the templates we provide for our instructional colleagues. Excuse me. Okay. Number 5 out of 6 items this fine afternoon, the numbers for our office, pulled for our annual report, so from last year and prior. Yeah, there's more of them. There are likely a couple of reasons. Every year we try to get better at letting our colleagues know there is a process and that we can support them in that. So more reports come in. Great, that's a good thing. And likely a few more students, particularly post-pandemic, don't know how to college like we imagined, right? Pre-pandemic, there's more of that or less of that, are definitely more anxious, are definitely struggling much more with mental health concerns and issues. That might result in a choice of, I need to get through this in a way that's easiest for me, even though it might not be in line with policy and practice and good learning for me as a student. So not out of bounds necessarily, but yes, an increase for both of those reasons probably. Yeah. I mentioned outcomes and concerns. So most of our student cases or academic misconduct cases involve, right, taking credit for stuff that's not really theirs. And then a few of the others, even assisting other people do it, right? The 7 little friends helped other students cheat or gave them a copy of the test or let them use their paper or whatever. Again, this is last year. If you do math, if you're a math human, that actually adds up to more than 75 because there might be more than one allegation for a case. In case you're doing math, because the last slide said 75 for last year. And then in terms of outcomes, as I mentioned, the most frequently selected sanction by our faculty colleagues is, yeah, you get a lower grade on that assignment, or we're going to fail you on this assignment. And this one assignment, and let's talk about how to do better and what you need to be successful. And again, you can assign more than one sanction. So you could say, I'm picking lower grade or failing grade, and this is an official reprimand in writing. They both count as a sanction, and then both of those items are on that outcome letter. You picked whatever D and E as outcomes. Okay,
Yeah, what's the difference between in the file and presented only to the students if we're,
yeah,
copying you on the.
that's a great question. All right, if you, and you can if you like, suggest maybe a glass of wine, actually read chapter 14. There's a section that involves 1, 2, and 3 as a potential sanction. And basically it says, hey, faculty, if you believe academic misconduct happened, you can simply apply one of these sanctions. But B and C of after A says, but you have to invite them to a conversation to do that. So even though it's an oral reprimand, you still need to engage them in fact finding. Right? Here's what I see. What do you say? Okay, I think you did it. And there's no way for the university to know if this is the first time or the 5th time, unless we go, please tell us up front. So we can check for you and we can monitor if a particular student is bouncing all over academic misconduct during their college career. So we can stop that. We can time them out for a while, whatever's the right item to help them understand and learn from their choices, not they're not okay. So officially in 14, that's a sanction you can apply. I'm going to send you a letter, but it's not going to be in the student's file. But the university has to know that there is a letter, and so we're gonna put it in the file. Technically, it's technically less severe as a sanction, right? That's why they're way over there. But it's almost the exact same amount. Weirdly, as it sounds. Yes, please.
Are there any patterns in the nature of the student's offense related to the severity of the disciplinary sanction?
Probably would vote no. Actually.
So it's just professors' discretion of what they want.
Yep. Well, and like, because we're all educators, right? Most faculty are like, if you did it, there needs to be an educationally related consequence. Okay, I'm going to lower the grade or fail the grade for this. And because we're all educators, I don't want to hammer them because I know they're still learning, and I hope they can learn from this letter and the conversation and the outcome and then the rest of class. So, I mean, if there's any pattern, I think in our conversations, our faculty colleagues stay away from the really heavy things, particularly because most of the time it's one and done for students. There's not a lot of recidivism in relation to academic misconduct. There are a couple, again, but very few. And so I think collectively we were like this is the sweet spot, right? Either redo it and get a grade, or I'm going to fail you now, but let's figure out how you can be successful for the rest of this class. And again, the super heavy things, like if it's out here, suspension, expulsion, last year we didn't do any. Again, that's one or two, because that's for pausing a student's college career for a while or forever in the system. That's my list, dear friends. I do want to say here, because, on the poster it said AI. Yes, but regardless of why or how a student engaged in academic misconduct, the process is exactly and precisely the same. So if they used our friend ChatGPT to generate a lovely paper, and you're like, this is clearly not yours, because I have the last one and I have this one. And in the conversation go, well, I might have Googled them. I might have chat. Okay, let's call it academic misconduct. And that's what we do now. Let's figure out how. The process is exactly the same, regardless. And there are no good technological tools at the moment, for capturing whether or not AI was used in submitting an assignment. And so there's not a lot of fix other than all the stuff I imagine Sybil's already sharing, and you've heard across the country, and in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. More assignments, smaller assignments, more frequent evaluation and assessment, right? A gentle retooling of courses as appropriate for their subject matter and content to be able to watch and help a student, and be transparent up front, right? With students at the start of class, maybe at week 4 of class, and around midterms of class to go, this is what's okay, this is what's not okay, just touch base again. I know I said it already. but you should know that, dear students, what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. All right, any in-person questions? Now the university has been closed for 15 minutes?
I have a quick question.
Yes, go on.
Is there anywhere on the Dean of Students site where terms like plagiarism are defined?
I would probably vote no in relation to our website and content
At the,
as I looked.
at the university, at the PG Nancy, is there a place?
No, it's not defined in 14.
No, because the wording in 14 is taking credit for something that you didn't do.
Right.
So it doesn't really define specifically
Yeah.
plagiarism.
Agreed. That might be a conversation for civil colleagues for us to, I know in a fair number of academic buildings, I have seen, I forget who did it, there's a plagiarism, beautiful, colorful tabloid sized piece of paper. That I thought was quite fantastic at the time, but it's not a university product, right? We purchased it and said, here's a good guidance for that. Yeah, I don't. What we have found, particularly in UW's system, in my time here, the system likes to leave the rules a shade more loose, right, a little more flexible, a little more gray, to be able to address behavior that fits somewhere in the boundaries of that. So I don't know if that's why they have or not made the choice to specifically define them. Yes, please.
So with regards to AI, so you said, I mean, I know Turnitin has that tool that, you know, text, but the sense is that that's not really very effective.
So, so my suggestion, this is Troy, you should use all the tools available to you. But in listening to our AI experts, like I attended the AI presentation from UW System in September, I think, and other AI experts even Tobias Barsky's like, yeah, but if you do this, you can run it through, turn it in, and it won't get caught anymore. That the tools are designed and turn it in as a product, and they're looking for customers to pay for their product. But the AI experts themselves say, not really a good solution yet for discerning whether something is generated by AI or not. So you have to use your knowledge of the student, your interaction with their previous products, right? That's where that has to come in, probably more so, yeah.
So I am curious, so now, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That they have tweaked the AI to, you know, run it past that kind of surveillance technology, for lack of a better word. But I am curious, when it does identify things as likely to be AI generated and that to be.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Like that's what I.
Right.
Yeah, you trust your tools you have.
Yeah.
The challenge will likely be you'll catch less than actually is happening if you rely on that tool alone.
Yeah.
And you can also catch a lot of students who are using grammar correction
Yeah.
software.
Yeah,
Because
that's the hard part. If you're using
That
grammar.
also comes up as AI generated. And
Yeah.
so in the conversation that you have with students, you have to go into it with that open mind
Yep.
that they may actually have used a tool that you would find acceptable and it
Yeah.
just looks really bad.
We had a case like that last year where Grammarly was what was used and was taught. And we're like, look, here are my samples, here are the changes I can show. The student literally had their drafts saved as separate times, right? So it was easy to see that there were grammar adjustments and AI tools caught that as a problem. So that's where again, the conversation, right, to your point, perfect. The conversation will matter a lot with the student. To try to
So
figure
that,
out what.
and that's why I've heard, okay, but beware, these are false positives.
Yeah, that does exist. That does exist.
And then potentially missing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Potentially.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
It's not a perfect science, that's for sure.
That initial, so way back to step 0.5, we send in, you know, here's my concern.
Mhm.
And you said that's a chance for your office to say, oh, this is a,
Yeah.
you know, repeat, whatever. But it doesn't happen very often. I'm
Right.
thinking, you know, so am I waiting before I get
Nope.
the student to offer?
Nope,
me?
my staff and I read reports every single morning.
Okay.
And our front desk staff will look for here's academic misconduct. Do you have anything else? If you don't hear from us, carry on to your friends, do the process and move forward. We're really responsive. And there are, again, if it's 75 and 9 months worth of work, 10 months worth of work, it's not, thankfully, a lot. So we're able to respond pretty quickly when it works.
I'm just curious, if I do send in a report saying I have a funny feeling about this assignment created by this person, and you get back to me and say, your funny feeling has been shared by other instructors, right?
Yep.
Would that information affect then the process from my point of view?
It would not.
It would not.
So what, sorry, it would not to a point.
Okay.
Because you have a concern about this student and this assignment in this particular class. And again, what likely would happen is Brittany would email you and go, let's talk. Your task would be to go through 1 through 3, invite the student, have the conversation, make a determination about this class and this assignment and this student here. And if you're like, yeah, this is academic misconduct, the next sanctioning piece would be the conversation that would happen with our office. If this is the second time, this is the third time this has happened, let's collaborate on what a right sanction is, because not only did it happen, but it's happened multiple times. We would recommend that the sanction be different, or because now that you've had this conversation, you know what, we're going to pull the case into the Dean of Students office, and Brittany will investigate, which means interview the faculty, gather information from the student again, and then we would lump all of the cases together in terms of thinking about sanction. Because it might be appropriate that they get a lower grade in the class,
Right.
it's right, not just the assignment, but the course itself. It might be appropriate they earn an F in the course, or we separate them for a little while, or we think suspension as a possible outcome. So 1 through 3, still pretty much the same. It's the number 4 in conversation about potential sanctioning if found responsible for you.
Right.
Yeah, great question.
My only concern, I like that process. The concern I have is, and I don't think there's a solution to this. What if I say, I think the student might have cheated, I'm going to do an investigation. I get the call from Brittany, yeah, you're not the only one. Keep a surprise. If the knowledge that I'm not the only one would make it harder for me to extend the benefit of the doubt to the student, right?
It might impose bias.
Right.
That is accurate, and you think about that.
Yeah, I'm sure
About in
you
terms
do.
of
I'm
timing
sure
of the
you do.
conversation, because we do the same thing with hall directors, right?
Yeah.
So if this is the second time with the student and they found responsible the first time, we talk with the hall director to go, okay, just start here. What happened here on that day? Were they even in the room for the whatever?
Right.
Yes or no, and make a decision. Let's then talk about the sanction or the outcome. So it's still the idea of focusing on the facts of the moment, right? Maybe again, this is the 3rd time. Okay, we'll take care of that. For the faculty member in the moment, it's their situation that they focus on. Then we'll work it out together.
Yeah.
So just in terms of, the process, so I have always just sent in like the letter that I send to the student. Do I also have to fill out the form online? Is that recommended?
That would be the way we would like the letter to come in,
Oh, okay.
is because you can attach items directly to the form.
Okay.
If it
'Cause I
doesn't
can
come in that
email
way, we just fill out the form in the office and
Got it.
add what you sent them. It would help us administratively
Got it.
if the
Okay.
form was used and the letter you send was attached. That'd be sweet.
Okay.
But again, like, we're not
Fair
gonna
enough.
push back and go,
Yeah.
no, don't send it to us. Like, we're here to help. So
Sure.
either way is fine. It's easier for us if it's done online.
Perfect. Okay. I've usually just emailed it, but that's, or copied it in the student, so, yeah, okay. That's good.
All righty.
Just
Yeah,
one
bring it.
more. I just thought of one more, like this one case I had where I sent the letter, I never heard back. I've never heard back from the student, and so then I just,
You're doing great.
and I do remember, in this one case, it was pretty blatant, and I gave them a 0 for the assignment, and
Ooh. If they ghosted
Okay,
you,
yeah,
you get to just decide
right,
based on what you have.
yeah,
You have offered them the opportunity, you've given them enough time to respond and get something scheduled. You told them how to schedule with you, and
Yeah.
either they're not reading their email, or they're like, ugh, I'm
Yeah.
busted, and I don't want to. Okay. The same is true for our conduct process.
Yeah.
They don't technically have to show up to the meeting. We will continue to do our job.
Yeah.
And render a finding and a sanction based on what we do have at the time. So perfectly okay, as long as we follow, right, step number one, and we've invited them and given them time to try to schedule. It does happen, happens to me, which is weird. Come on, it's Troy, you know me, come see me. Any other questions, dear friends? Any online questions?
Lynn
I'll stare at
Ludwig
the
says,
owl.
thank you very much. Gotta go now.
Sounds great. All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a day. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you so much, Troy.